Hey guys, welcome back to today's video. Today is Sunday, August 29th, 2021, and today I'm going to be talking about the Wisconsin Republican Party, now seeking over $500,000 for a 2020 election probe. Now, before we get into this video, I do want to say that I probably sound a little bit different. This is how my voice will probably sound for the next couple of months. I am in a room that is shared with 3 other of my suite mates, so my recording room is either my bedroom or in the common room, and this is currently the common room. I'm in a little bit of a cubby. I might post a picture of what it looks like in the future just for you guys to understand what situation I'm actually in, but overall, what I'm working with is just what I am working with, and I do apologize if it does make the viewing experience a tad bit worse than it was before, but I am trying to do my best to get videos out for you guys as often as I can and pretty much just make it work while I'm away at college. So Wisconsin and the Republican Party, what's actually happening here is that they are looking in the Wisconsin legislature to get over $500,000 to investigate the legitimacy of the 2020 election. And this isn't money that is just going to be commonly spent on regular types of election probes or election audits. This is not money that is fundraised for and by the Trump campaign, whatever it is. This is money that is coming directly from taxpayer dollars, which means that this money is going to be what was utilized through the state's tax system, which means that voters will be directly implicated by this taxpayer dollars. Money that could be spent towards infrastructure, money that could be spent towards education, whatever it might be, is now going potentially towards an election probe. And that's why this is noteworthy. That's why this is something that needs to be discussed, especially with an upcoming 2022 Senate race. There's no real reason as to why this Senate race should be coming back, this presidential race should be coming back to even have some type of impact on that election. Yet here it is right again, as mentioned by almost every other major Republican nominee across the nation. Joe Biden won the state of Wisconsin without a doubt. He won the state by 0.6% across the state. It has been confirmed time and time again by the court systems, by multiple people across the aisle, that there was no illegitimacy in the state of Wisconsin when it came down to the presidential election or any other election during the 2020 election season. And at this point in time, 9 months after the election, try to claim that the election was rigged and ask for taxpayer dollars to be put forth towards this effort to prove a claim that has not been proven time and time again. What's happening here is that the Wisconsin Republican Party, specifically those in the state legislature, which means those who control the state, are looking for a reason to, in a sense, waste money. And it holds a lot of implications, knowing that Wisconsin is one of the most hotly contested Senate races of the 2022 election season. My political rating for the state of Wisconsin at this point is tilt towards the Democratic Party, plus, I guess, anywhere from 0.1% up to 1%. So it's not a large margin for the Democratic Party, but based on my most recent projection, Democrats are the slight favorite in the state of Wisconsin. Well, currently they actually have a Republican incumbent who won back in 2016 by 3.4% across the state. He was able to win with the majority of the vote. Donald Trump did not win the state of Wisconsin in 2016 with the majority of the vote. So Ron Johnson was able to outpace Donald Trump by around 3 percentage points, which was pretty good for him at the time. But it wasn't necessarily a deafening margin, one that would have been, talked about in 2022 as room to fall by any means. 2022 really could go either way, and the fact is, instead of funneling money into this Senate race, and obviously you couldn't do that with taxpayer dollars, but instead of focusing on fundraising, instead of trying to ensure that Ron Johnson either runs for United States Senate or wins United States Senate, they are instead focusing their energy and their time on the 2020 election. And it's just unfortunate to see that a political party in the state of Wisconsin, which has had such good luck in recent elections, not the best in 2020, not the best in 2018, but in 2016, flipped Wisconsin for the first time since 1984. This was a large victory for Donald Trump and the Republican Party. The fact that even in 2012, with Paul Ryan as the vice presidential nominee for Mitt Romney, did not even get to become, the reason why Wisconsin flipped red, still went to Obama by around 6 points. So Donald Trump did what many Republicans viewed as impossible. He flipped the state of Wisconsin. It was a part of the blue wall here, and it went in unison with Michigan and Pennsylvania. So when Donald Trump was able to do well here, this was actually one of the best performances for the GOP on the presidential level, even if he may not have necessarily matched the percentages of previous Republican candidates. Only one of them was able to win in the 21st century, and that was President Trump. On that same ballot, the Republican Party won that Senate election, but now that Donald Trump has fallen out of favor from the constituents in Wisconsin, The Republican Party should be not necessarily looking to appease or try to win over purely Republican voters from the 2020 election, because they can't win with just 48% of the vote. You see, this recount effort is really only popular amongst the more right-wing members of the state of Wisconsin. Those who are Republicans across the state, they will be the ones happy about this $680,000 being spent on the 2020 election probe. But beyond that, I mean, this is a lot of money. This is a probe that is going to be utilized by the Democratic Party in order to attack the Republican Party on relitigating the 2020 election 9-10 months after the election actually occurred. And this is not the first attempt at a recall effort. The Donald Trump campaign raised money in order to investigate the state of Wisconsin and found nothing. They put in money to recount the votes, to audit the votes in the state of Wisconsin. And what did they find? Absolutely nothing. The recount measures never found anything beneficial for the Republican Party in the state of Wisconsin, in the state of Pennsylvania, in the state of Georgia, in the state of Arizona. No matter where you looked, not a single recount effort put the Republicans ahead by any margin over Joe Biden. They lost all of the states that they were losing and were declared lost 4 days after the election by the time we had finalized the projections in every single state. Yet the Republican Party in Wisconsin continuously wants to bring this up. And the Senate election is a race that I mentioned for a reason. This is a race that deserves a lot of attention, and it does get a lot of attention. It is one of the most hotly contested states in the 2022 election cycle. Not a single Republican, however, has announced their candidacy, but many Democrats already have, including the Lieutenant Governor of Wisconsin, including the Wisconsin State Treasurer, including notable names, Tom Nelson, someone who was the former majority leader of the Wisconsin Assembly as a Democratic candidate, as a Democratic state representative. So looking at the list here, amongst those who are running for Senate, amongst those who are, out of the race in 2022, you see here that Ron Johnson, as the incumbent Republican, has yet to announce whether or not he is going to be running for United States Senate. If he runs for United States Senate, the race will probably be just as close, maybe even closer, given the unpopularity of some of his recent comments that have alluded towards him being anti-vaccination, anti-COVID-19 vaccination. So whatever it is, Ron Johnson really isn't putting himself in a very powerful position for 2022, but the Republican Party clearly isn't here either. If you take a look at Open Secrets, which tracks the donations and the money spent by political campaigns, you'll see here that Ron Johnson seems to take the lead here, raising $2.999 million for this campaign. First of all, I want to say that this amount of money being raised by an incumbent senator is not at all a number that should be positively reflected upon. I want you to add up the numbers, or not. You can honestly just eyeball it here and see that the Democratic Party, if you add up all of their numbers, has actually out-fundraised Ron Johnson as the incumbent senator. Now, I know what you may be thinking. He has yet to announce his campaign, but it's weird that he has not announced his campaign. He's been endorsed by Donald Trump. He's received a lot of attention from members of the right wing. Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell wants him to run for United States Senate. So looking at Ron Johnson, he's receiving all types of political pressure, yet is holding out because in 2016, he made a promise that if he was to win re-election, which he did, that he would not run for a third term. He walked back on that promise in 2020, saying that he was not under the assumption Democrats would have a trifecta. Doubled down on that in 2021. 2021, he says, later on in that year, that he's inclined to retire from the United States Senate in 2022, but has not finalized his decision. Donald Trump continuously sends out press alerts saying, run, Ron, run, trying to get him to run for United States Senate. But you can see here that, he is not in a position where he was at in 2015. 6 years ago today, he was in a much more powerful position. He had raised more than double what he already has now. Pretty much, he was lining himself up and had a full-on campaign staff. In fact, he only has one type of campaign employee. He doesn't have a campaign manager. He doesn't have an intern team. He does not seem to be gearing up for a re-election bid. He could announce right before the primary and easily win it because of his close association with President Trump and the fact that he is the incumbent. But generally speaking, in one of the most hotly contested swing states of the 2022 election cycle, you probably should have announced already, and the money doesn't seem to be lying. He is seeing a dramatic reduction in the amount of support he's receiving, financially speaking, because he has not announced his campaign for Senate. And instead of diverting their resources to elections and fundraising and phone banking and getting forth a re-election campaign for Ron Johnson or an election campaign for one other type of Republican. They are trying to relitigate the 2020 presidential election. And it simply is something that just doesn't work and doesn't look too good on the on the Republican Party. The Democratic Party in 2016 tried something that was slightly similar, I would say, back in the early stages of that election. By no means did they go to the state legislature and try to invalidate the number of votes that were cast there for Donald Trump, nor did they take it to the United States Congressional Building and try to, argue that there should be some type of intervention by the vice president at the time was Joe Biden to reverse the electoral count in the state of Wisconsin. You see, what's happening here and what happened here 5 years ago, was that the Democratic Party, supported a lot of money in the recount for Jill Stein. She was able to raise millions of dollars to recount the state of Wisconsin, and the vote total actually changed by around 131 votes in favor of Donald Trump, in fact. The recall effort did not help Hillary Clinton, and while the margins were close, many people viewed the Jill Stein recount fund as a grift of sorts. It was something that was expected to be a recount that would actually change the results, and obviously that's never the reality. I think that the mainstream media made a very clear point of that. During that time period, I remember the New York Times and CNN, Fox News, MSNBC pretty much said consistently that there was no significant change in terms of a recount. In fact, no major election on the presidential level has ever changed because of a recount. So looking at the state of Wisconsin, this was a state that was, of course, close, decided by less than a point, but it was still around, 20,000 votes here that was deciding between the two candidates. So it was in that position where, Donald Trump won by 22,000 votes. Just a recount alone was not going to change the results. It changed it by 131 out of millions of votes cast across the state of Wisconsin. So it really just went to show that the recounts don't change much, if anything. And now this election audit being brought back up will be utilized effectively by the Democratic Party. They have already made it clear that they are going to slam Ron Johnson and other Republican senators on every single thing that they can. Taking a look at the general election polling data here, you can actually see here that Tom Nelson, as the potential Democratic nominee, defeats Ron Johnson by 4 points. Now, that 4-point margin is done by a Democratic pollster. You can't take that to heart as, the end-all be-all for polling data. Obviously, more data needs to be taken and received and produced from the state of Wisconsin. A lot more polls need to be done in this state in order for us to get a more accurate indication based off what the polling data is telling us. But if you're looking at a lot of these results here, you'll see that Tom Nelson, at least with this singular poll, takes the lead over Ron Johnson. And pretty much the amount of support that Ron Johnson is expected to get has been decreasing over time. The fact is that he seems to come across as someone who is anti-vax in a sense, someone who does not trust the COVID-19 vaccine. Him and half the country, but he needs more than half of the vote in the state of Wisconsin to win re-election. Republicans need that support that they received in 2016. Otherwise, they could potentially lose an additional Senate seat. And you can see exactly what that does to the Democratic Party's numbers. It brings them up to 52 to 48. Now, that's with Pennsylvania. Take away Pennsylvania, 51 to 49. But in fact, it benefits the Democratic Party by expanding their Senate majority by a singular seat, all because the Republicans can't seem to bring enough support for Ron Johnson, enough to a point where they would be able to consolidate around him and, ramp up support, pretty much bring out the big guns like they did in 2016. And that simply is just going to go, I think, in a very negative fashion for the Republican Party if they continue down this pathway. There's a lot of ammunition that you can use against Ron Johnson, and this only helps the Democratic Party. Having this election being brought back up yet again is a very similar thing to that what we're seeing in Maricopa County in the state of Arizona. In Maricopa County and across the state of Arizona, the approval rating of the audit is in the low 40s. It is very clear that constituents in Arizona do not support this type of audit/recount 9 to 10 months after the election, and the Wisconsin voters will likely feel the same way. In fact, Wisconsin voted for Biden by more than double, actually around double, what Arizona voted for by Biden. Voted for Biden by. Looking at Wisconsin, if there was to be an additional state that disapproved of this election probe, of taking taxpayer dollars and funneling it into election security, whatever it might be, it is very clear that they are trying to prove that the election was rigged when there is no substantial proof to back up such a claim. And obviously, it is going to be detrimental to the GOP in many, many ways. The Democratic Party already has enough ammunition, and I am genuinely shocked, and I say this truly speaking, genuinely shocked that they are now expanding on this. First, it was Arizona, Pennsylvania has been dabbling into it, and now the Wisconsin Republicans want over $500,000 of money that was taken from hardworking taxpayers to funnel into this election probe. I'm saying it now, and it is going to be said if this election probe goes through. There was no election fraud in the 2020 election to change the outcome of the results for Joe Biden. Looking at that state, yes, it was close, but it was just as close as it was in 2016. To say that there was election fraud and to relitigate the election 10 months after it occurs will never look good in the eyes of the voters. Maybe a month or two after the election, it makes sense to do a recount. Maybe do an audit 2 months after the election. But this far out goes to show that the Republican Party will not give up the 2020 election, no matter how much it hurts them. And I can tell you right now, this will certainly be hurting whichever type of Republican nominee, Ron Johnson or not, is on the ballot in 2022. And they should be worried. So thank you guys so much for watching this video. Make sure to comment down suggestions below. Subscribe on the left if you haven't already, and check out the Instagram and Twitter. At the bottom left of the screen, there's also a Discord server for you to go ahead and join. On the screen, there's a video you can watch and then a playlist for my 2022 Senate election analysis videos. Again, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you all tomorrow.